Hi, welcome back to Deep Images, and we are nearing the end of our coverage of vampire films. And we're going to talk about one that is it was definitely a spiritual um, sibling of a movie that I had talked about called The Blood Spattered Bride. And they're both derived from the works of Sheridan Le Fanu. Uh, I'm here with my co-host Rhiannon Clark. I'm Henry Covert. Please like and subscribe. Hit that notification button so you can get all our videos. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn that film over to this nice young lady here.
I don't know about nice, but yeah.
Cool young lady.
Thank you. Yeah, so um, I was asked by Henry, would I like to review this movie, Vampire? And I said, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to. I volunteered because it looked super cool. It's from 1932, like just after the First World War. Um, you know, so I think a lot of horror movies were came from after the First World War because there were so many victims of the
Mhm.
war as well. So like horror was deep in the minds of people back in 1932.
Yeah.
There's
And
a lot of horror.
another war was already looming in 1932.
Yeah, of course, World War Two even. Yeah. Uh, So this film was directed by Carl Dreyer, isn't it? Carl Dreyer and
Carl Theodore. Yeah.
Theodore, because it says TH dot Theodore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. um, but so there was a man
And
called
it is German. I don't know if we
yeah, it's a
specifically said
German
that or
film.
not. But that ties in with the whole war thing that you were just saying. So
It's a German kind of French film. It's kind of a mix uh, between German French influenced film because there
yeah.
was actors from France and
Oh right, yeah.
Germany in the film,
Right.
and it was actually dubbed into English, French, and German.
Hmm.
So it had a wide audience, which
Yeah,
was really cool. And
absolutely.
I think it was Carl's first talkie.
Hmm.
It was his first talking picture or whatever. Uh, so the sound, dubbing sound onto film was fairly new in 1932. So Carl went over to London actually uh, he went to investigate sound, how to dub sound onto movies. And that's where he wrote this movie. He wrote this movie with a lady, Kristen Kristen Jewell, he wrote it with. In London, the pair of them got together and wrote this film, and inspired by In a Glass Darkly, by a collection of stories from In a Glass Darkly. And it was actually the budget for the film was mainly given by the lead actor,
Yeah.
um, the guy Alan Gray, but his real name,
Well,
he's
the
a big
character is Alan Gray.
fancy.
Yeah.
His character is Alan Gray, but he has a big fancy name,
Yes, he does.
Nicholas Nicholas de Gunsberg.
And what
Nicholas de
name did he use as
Gunsberg.
the actor? West, something West, or something.
Julian West,
Yeah.
not Herbert West. Julian
No, no.
West.
Yeah.
So he gives himself a pseudonym for this film, I guess. Julian West is playing Alan Gray, the protagonist, and he's a very wealthy man who gives the money for this film so that he can actually play the lead character.
Hmm.
Like, I will play the lead. I will give you the money for this film, and I will play the lead character.
Happens a lot. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, sure.
Why not? So we're starting off in a village in France. It's Court Court Tempier.
Hmm.
The village is Court Tempier. So um, yes, Alan Gray goes over on this little boat. I think he goes over in a little raft and comes onto this sort of to this village, and he sees a guy and he's got a big a sickle. Is it a big sickle? And it's kind
Quite
of
an image to start with. I mean,
yeah, death.
yeah,
This is going one way. So people are going to die. Some people are going to die.
right.
It's ominous, very ominous
It
beginning.
is. It is.
Hmm. And it's really beautifully shot. I heard that there was a gauze put over the film to actually make it look dreamy. So it's a black and white movie, of
Mhm.
course, because 1932. But there's a gauze put over the camera, and I guess it just makes everybody's face look sort of like there, but kind of half not there at the same time, which
Yeah, I'm
always
trying
makes
for that
people.
look here on the show with myself, but I don't know if I achieve it. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No, you're more of a floating head though, but you're
Yeah,
cool.
I'm the floating head, like Dr.
Yeah,
Hill. So good.
yeah, yeah. Dr. Hill meets Mulder because you have the Venetian
Get
blinds
a
there.
job in the sideshow.
Yes, very funny. Classic. Uh, so yeah, so this guy Alan Gray, he goes to this village because he's sort of obsessed with the occult and he's obsessed with darkness, and he's heard a lot about this village and this he just wants to explore it, and his mind, he's read so much about occult stuff that he doesn't know what's real and what. So in a really weird way, we don't know as the watchers whether or not this is all in his head
Right.
or whether it's really happening, which is a very strange and interesting point of view, I
He doesn't
suppose.
always know either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, so it's a great premise for a film.
Hmm.
So he comes upon this inn and he books in, and it's a very spooky inn. They're like, come round the front. When you open the door, they see him coming and they go, come round the front. And so he comes in or whatever, and he uh, gets shown to his room by a little girl. Like, I mean, it's like, is this a little girl own this inn? It's very strange and ambiguous. And and then he sees this character that kind of has like half a face, kind of no eyes. It's like, it's a very spooky place. And so he's kind of freaked out and he like locks the door. He's like, oh, God, I'm going to go to sleep. I don't know, freaking out. And then in the middle of the night, the key turns in the door and it's kind of like, you can see the key turning, which is very spooky.
Hmm.
And this old man comes in and is like, freaking out, and like really intense character. We find out that he's a lord of a manor, and he's come in to say that she must not die. He says to Alan Gray's character, to Alan Gray, and Alan Gray is kind of young man, sleek black hair, very very handsome, but kind of like strangely asexual. You don't know. I
Mm,
don't know.
yeah,
He
I can
just,
see
I
that.
think he's so enraptured in the darkness of his dreams. He's more in his dream state that you don't really feel an energy of sexuality coming off of him, so,
He
per
reminds me
se.
of both real life men of that era who were into the occult that I've seen pictures of and read about, and
Hmm.
also of the writings of Hans Hubers, who was German, and he had a protagonist Frank Braun that was kind of similar to Al. I'm not saying he influenced Alan Gray. He did come beforehand, but it was basically a guy like that, and a guy who's he's always wearing the suit. And he's kind of minimalist, and he's just becomes obsessed in that world. So
Mysterious, yeah, and dreamy, and like
mhm.
in the dream, almost has a sort of big eyes, like
Yeah,
haunted eyes. His eyes are huge. And so the old man comes in and he's like his eyes are have widened bigger. It's like, whoa. This trip's getting intense, man. Uh, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the Lord of the Manor, he says, she must not die. And that's a very mysterious. And he's like, he writes down on a piece of paper, he says, he leaves this kind of book wrapped up, and it says, to be opened upon my death. And then he leaves.
Nice.
And Alan tries to get a little bit of sleep,
Okay.
wakes up the next day, and then he goes towards this feeling. He has a feeling of a soul that needs his help, that's kind of lost. He kind of senses a soul. And I don't know, but I kind of feel like the Lord of the Manor dude, I feel like he's a little bit psychic, kind of like he foretells, he foresees things that are about to happen before they happen in a really weird way. That's
I
why
can see that.
he kind of, opens the door and says,
He
"You
knows the
must be
score
the
of what's going.
hero."
Yeah, yeah,
Pretty much. You
yeah.
must be the hero in this story. Save my daughter.
Right.
Yes. But anyway, sorry, I was like jumping ahead there. But anyway, he gets led towards uh, by these shadows. He goes on a walk outside of the inn and goes towards this manor that's attached to a castle.
Hmm.
And on the journey to the manor attached to the castle, there are all manners of interestingly beautiful shadows dancing. There's a man, like I think he's cutting turf or something, or digging a hole, but he's doing it backwards. It's kind
Hmm.
of almost like it's like the Beatles of film.
Yeah, the shadow stuff is really creepy.
Yeah, and like shadows of ladies and gentlemen dancing in a circle. And then there's this guy who's lost his leg. He's got a peg for a leg. I really feel like that's where the war, like the sort of the horrors of war come in, because one of the
Yeah,
shadows is a man with who's
sure.
lost his leg,
Yeah.
you know?
There are a lot of men
So
in
I think,
Germany at that time that didn't like that.
yeah. And I'm sure that they are living in PTSD,
Hmm.
which is a hell that
Oh yeah.
consumes people and makes people feel like they're living in a dream type
All right.
scenario where we
Keep
don't know what's
reliving.
real and what's not.
Yeah.
You're reliving things, or even maybe the horrors of your past are projecting onto your present.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I get all that. I understand it. It's very understandable, which
I
makes the
get it
movie
too.
very compelling,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
compelling.
Yeah.
And so then we go to I think it looks like a barn, but it's like attached. It's like I think the fact that the architecture is so strange makes it again more dreamy.
Hmm.
Um, and we see this old lady going like moving towards Alan Gray, and he doesn't know who this character is. Very mysterious, but absolutely spooks the bejesus out of Alan. Anyway, and he meets this guy, a doctor. I think he stumbles upon the village doctor, and he's got lots of strange things in his like skeletons and really strange sculptures, and it's a really weird room. Very
Hmm.
strange
Hmm.
energy. Like I don't understand how they managed to do it, but it's just shot so beautifully. The
Yeah.
black and white shots are incredible. It's a
Yeah.
work of art. Like every still of this movie is a work of art.
And correct me if I'm wrong, aren't there periods, I should know this by now, I've seen it enough, but aren't there periods where there's really like no sound or like almost no music? Did you notice that?
Well, there are particular still moments of stillness.
Because that was
Absolutely.
not that's not prevalent now at all. But you know, back then there were movies coming off of the silent era that had th- like no, it's nothing, no silent, you know, silence, no music, no speaking, maybe the sound of footsteps or something. Like there's a scene in Dracula early on that's like that, and it's very creepy. The very first Dracula,
Hmm.
and That's kind of what this is, remind me of at times.
Oh yeah, there is intercut particular sections of writing. Um, Kind of, I think it's his diary. I think Alan Gray is writing a
Hmm.
diary, so he's writing it down. So we see intercut sections of diary, and it's I had to get subtitles obviously because I don't understand German
Right, right,
yet.
right.
um, so
I
it's
wonder if
there.
I wonder if
Mhm,
Dreyer was I don't know if I've read this or not. I wonder if he was not wholly comfortable with talkies yet, and so he's kind of transitioning. So there's not a huge amount of dialogue, but there are those, passages like you mentioned that are almost kind of like intertitles were in the silence. So
mhm.
it's kind of like a bridge movie between.
Yeah, it is a bridge. It's a very beautiful and very interesting structure to the movie because because there's sections of uh, just like collages of images even,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then there's action shots, and then there's moments of the diary of writing in the diary, and and then there's there's the book later. We see the book later as well, so
Hmm.
that's
I
also
like that
like
because
yeah.
I mean, isn't he basically a scholar, Alan?
Yeah, he is. He's an explorer. He's an explorer, and he's a scientist of the occult in a
Yeah,
way
it's exactly
because
like
he's
Frank Brown. Yeah, very good.
yeah. As though I have observed, but yeah, they meet. Yes, that's what I've observed. Uh, so yeah, I think they meet the village doctor, and he reminds me of Mark Twain.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
He kind of looks like Mark Twain meets
yes.
Einstein.
Well, he's very archetypal of the kind of look that a lot of the early Van Helsing had. I mean, because Peter Cushing was the first Van Helsing that was kind of more, glamorous and clean shaven, but
Mhm.
prior to that, and sometimes after you had more of that scruffy, kind of crazy, professor kind of look to the doc.
Mad Professor Head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, Alan Gray, he's kind of going, he hears like dogs barking and children crying or whatever, and then and then he meets the village doctor and he asks, "Did you hear that? Did you hear the children crying and the dogs barking?" And uh, the village doctor is like, "No, there was no dogs barking. There were no children crying."
Uh-oh.
The way he said it is kind of in a strange sort of gaslighty way. It's like,
Mhm.
whatever you heard, you didn't hear it.
Right, right.
Which makes you unsettled, makes the viewer unsettled and creeped out.
Hmm. Yeah.
He's got a very forceful, aggressive, kind of arrogant energy, I think,
Hmm.
in a sense. Um,
Definitely.
so he ushers Alan Gray away, and then we see that the village doctor is actually tending to that mysterious old lady, Harriet. I think her name is Harriet. Yes. um, yes, and so we see that the village doctor is kind of like um, is a helper for Harriet. Or no, it's not Harriet. Sorry, it's Marguerite Chopin. That's her name.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah, yeah.
sorry. Her name is Marguerite Chopin in
Right.
the movie.
Yeah. Key
Yes,
character.
indeed. And then it cuts over back over to the manor, and we see Leonie, the older daughter of the old man who burst in the night to Alan Gray's room or whatever. But we see her in the bed, and she's kind of weakened. She's a little bit weak, and it says they say, I think there's a nurse there, and they say the wounds are almost healed, and which mean like it's kind of mysterious. Ooh, the
Hmm.
wounds have almost healed.
Hmm.
But if you know anything about vampire films or whatever, the wound is almost healed. It probably means she's been
Mm,
bitten,
hmm
and
hmm
there's a wound healing on her neck or whatever.
hmm
And she says, "Das Blut, das Blut," which means the blood, the blood.
hmm
And yeah, and mysteriously, the Lord of the Manor gets shot. So the dad gets shot out of nowhere. It's like a shadow shoots him, and it's so mysterious. There's a big question mark on it. It's like, who shoots him? But he foresaw his death, so it, you know, he foresaw his own death. But at the same time, the fact that it never tells you, it doesn't tell you who shot him or whatever.
Hmm.
Nobody even questions it.
Probably some
um,
theories, but I don't
yeah,
personally have one.
yeah, no.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, he's gone. He's gone down anyway. And he's gone down. And then the younger daughter, Giselle, she's kind of tending to her dad. And it's kind of like, it's really poignant because it's like you can see the love he has for his daughters. And she's 10, Alan Gray is like putting water into his mouth or whatever, trying to give him some hydration or whatever, trying to tend to him. But it's like, it's really poignant because like I saw my father die at the last days of his life, and I was almost
Same
brought
here.
back to the last days of my
Yeah.
father. Like it was a really kind of effective movie,
Yeah. It's a wild
you
thing to
know.
go through.
Yeah, like so if anybody who's ever been touched by death in that way, they'll actually feel it when they watch this movie. So
Yeah.
it's actually quite beautiful in a sense, you know.
Hmm hmm
So
Rest
then
in
Alan is when the Lord of the Manor dies, uh, and yeah, God bless him. And Alan says, "Right, I'm opening this book. I'm having a look," and we find out that it's kind of a book on vampires and like how to what's the story of vampires and how to kill them and what's their sus and so
Yeah.
he goes into sort of like research mode,
hmm
you know, and
Helps the audience out a lot too.
yeah, yeah, that's true. It's uh subplot or no, what's that?
Exposition.
Exposition.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
Oh,
the
you're
word I
welcome.
was looking for.
Yeah.
Exposition. Exactly. It's a very clever way of doing
hmm
exposition. Because a lot of the times in movies, a character just comes in and tells people in a really exposition dump. But
Right.
like, yeah. But in this, it's kind of like, yeah, it's
hmm
written down as a book entry. So we have a beautiful bit of German text, and the music is fantastic. The music all the way through this movie is stunning.
hmm
Um, because it is a silent movie. It's kind of half silent movie because there aren't very many words, which makes it more effective, I think. The music is by Wolfgang Zeller. Yeah,
Yeah, I like it.
stunning.
There have been other
Uh,
scores that I've heard, but I still think the original is the best one.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, of course, there are composers who would love to get their hands on the movie and give it a go. So yeah, in the book it says the vampires go for the blood of children and youths in their bloom, in full bloom,
Hmm
um, which makes me think of the elites in Hollywood as vampires. Do you
Got
know
to
what I
get
mean?
their adrenochrome fix.
Yeah, they gotta get their blood, their Das blood. Yeah.
Well, in
Uh,
Dracula, when Lucy becomes the vampire, she feeds on like infants and
yeah.
in London and until they stake her.
Vampires in real life do that too. They feed on. Yeah. So it's interesting, is all I'm saying.
Yes, I hear you.
hmm So Leonie is then taken by the she vampire out into the garden, and she feasts upon her in the garden, and basically they're like the sister Giselle is like, where Leone, 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 where are you? Where are you? well, you and they go looking for Alan and Giselle go looking for their sister, whatever, and find her just splayed artistically out in the garden as the vampirus runs off mysteriously. And the weird thing is that there's servants in the movie. So there's an old servant and his wife. And
Right.
first, I thought this was lame, but they get the old servant and his wife to carry Leone, uh, like all the way into the house or whatever. When Alan and Giselle are young people who could easily have carried the sister much easier than the
But
old
they're of a higher
servants.
class.
I know, but it's horrible.
I know it is.
That's nasty. I don't like you, Alan,
Servants
all
will
of a
do
sudden.
it.
So then there's a really beautiful kind of amazing scene where Leon, I think it looks like Leone, but it's Leon. Leon
Yeah, I
is
think
her
in
name,
this
I think.
book it has the little slash,
Yeah.
the French, so
So
it'd be
is it
Leon.
Leon or Leonie?
If you, I guess in French you would pronounce it Leon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Leon.
if it were feminine, it would have two N's and an E. But I think doesn't it
Hmm.
just have Leone? Or am I
Yeah,
correct?
that's it,
Yeah, and that
isn't it?
actually is the name of the character that is a victim of Carmilla in Carmilla. So
Interesting.
that's an element he took. I did
There's
notice that reading
crossover
through it.
there.
Yeah,
Mm,
kind of cannibalized that
okay,
whole short story collection
interesting.
for the movie.
But yeah, Leon, she's in the bed in the manor, the older daughter, and she's possessed. She's starting the grits of the vampirism or whatever is starting to take a hold of her, and the acting is incredible. Like
Yeah,
it's transfixing.
yeah,
She's
great.
kind of stunning
Yeah,
in a really strange way.
yeah, it's a
Like you
great
can.
physical acting. Me and Chuck talked about this. I forgot
Mhm.
when we reviewed the Devil. He reviewed the Devil by Zulawski. Zulawski belonged to this school of acting where that was a big thing, and
Yeah.
he said he was a particular fan of that. So what a
Incredible. So you see her kind of struggling for a minute, and then she just kind of almost enjoys feeling the vampire feeling running through her veins, and she's really enjoy. You can see it in her face that she enjoys the feeling. Which you see a lot of the time when people are enthralled by vampires, they are in a sort of somewhat erotic ecstasy.
hmm
Um, so there is that side of
Definitely.
things,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. Um, so yeah, Alan reads more to see how he can save her. More reading,
Right, more reading,
more text.
more exposition.
uh, more exposition. But yeah, so they call the village doctor, the pushy village doctor, and he decides he says to Alan says, "Can she be saved?" And he says, "Yes, if you perhaps, but if she needs more blood or whatever."
Mm,
So he's suggesting that Alan offers his blood to her, and so he draws the blood from Alan and to give to the older daughter, to Leon. And yeah, he becomes kind of woozy. He becomes a little bit like he's taken a lot of blood out of him. He's like, oh my God. And he orders the nurse away. So basically the village doctor, he's in control.
right, right,
So he thinks.
right.
So then there's more exposition, and it says in the book, as soon as the victim is completely under control of the vampire, he attempts to get him to commit suicide,
hmm
to give his soul over to evil. Because the suicide victim is lost forever, the golden gates of heaven are shut to him.
Right. That's a
Yeah.
very Catholic belief.
Yes. So Alan is completely drowsy. and yeah, he's knocked out. So the servant, the oldest servant, decides to take matters into his hands, and he decides to read the book that Alan, the vampire book, and he reads up on it, and he finds out that he is going to have to basically kill a vampire in order to set the soul of Leon free.
Yeah.
So the old servant is clued up on what to do. And then there's actually an amazing scene where Alan is in a coffin because I
Hmm.
think that the village doctor thinks he's dead,
Yeah.
and he's in a coffin, and so they for a while they kind of he's looking up at the sky and he can see himself in the coffin, and the shots are stunning,
Yeah, that's kind of
whatever.
a classic, a kind of iconic shot from that film is that
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah, and then there's another iconic shot where he wakes himself up. He kind of comes, he his soul and himself are
Oh
kind
yeah.
of,
Hmm.
it's really
Yeah, he's out of
interesting
his
shadow
body.
play. He's
Yeah,
out
that's
of
wild
body.
stuff. Mm.
Yeah. I'll let you watch that because you'll enjoy it. I don't want
No, I
to
watched it last
talk.
night or night before
Yeah,
last.
no, the audience, I mean.
Oh. Yeah, you guys. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
exactly,
definitely
indeed.
it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
Mm.
And they kill the vampiress. They drive a stake through her heart, and uh, then uh, then we see Leon coming back to herself, and it's stunning. She That's a stunning the way she does it, and then she says, my God,"
Mm.
like I'm come back to myself.
Yeah.
It's
That's,
very beautiful,
and
and then the
Marguerite
Lord.
Chupin was the vampire all along.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
indeed,
Okay.
yes. Amazing. And the wild thing is what I felt when I was watching the movie is that Marguerite Chopin
Hmm.
was already very, very old.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
they're definitely not alive now. And so even that feeling is spooky that like all of the older characters are most definitely not with us
Oh, the
anymore.
actors, you mean?
Yes,
Oh
the actors
yeah, I know.
themselves are not with us.
I know
And
who
then we're
it is.
watching this movie from 1932, and like it's almost like we're watching it with the spirits of the actors who were making the movie,
Yeah,
even almost.
it is a weird feeling sometimes.
Yeah, I kind of loved it. Like, ooh, I'm watching your film, guys. Yeah,
That's why art can make you immortal, you know?
indeed, absolutely. But the so we have this sort of David Lynchian moment where the Lord of the Manor comes back, and his it's just a big giant head, and he's coming back for revenge against the village doctor because he was so, you know, betrayed the daughters or whatever, and was working with the vampire. So, and because he was evil. Let's be real. So yeah, and in the end, there's an incredible shot where the village doctor gets brought up to this mill, and then he has a most horrific death, a most horrific death, death by flower, death by lots and lots of flower. It's a very bizarre ending, but and
Yeah.
then it says the end. But it's okay. I mean, I had to watch this movie a couple of times because it was so trippy. But I think that that was a testimony to the movie. I think it
Oh
was
yeah.
meant to be a trip. I
Yeah.
think this movie is meant to be a trip, and I'm really delighted I went on that trip. I
Yeah.
wouldn't take the trip back. Yeah.
Where I come from, when you say something or somebody's a trip, that's like definitely a compliment.
Hmm. Indeed. This movie was a trip.
So do
Yeah.
you have any other closing thoughts about this that you want to share?
Okay. My closing thoughts is that it was a very pioneering movie of its time, and that a lot of the shots and a lot of the artistry to do with this movie, inspired so many movies. of even to this day,
Hmm.
and it was ahead of its time. Um, and it was very, I mean, a lot of the actors, most of the actors were unknown actors as well, I
Hmm.
heard. And there
Hmm.
was only about
It's
two
true.
actors that were actually professional actors.
Yeah.
So I think it adds to the mysterious nature of the movie, and it's incredible and well worth a watch.
It's I read that it only recently that it was not well regarded critically when it came out because Dreyer was considered a master of cinema with all these other movies like Day of Wrath and Odette and all that, but um, that one wasn't considered very good, But then in time, now it's become considered a masterpiece. It's not considered his masterpiece yet among like big time cineasts, but definitely I think a lot of people it's their entryway. So I've only seen the two I named are the other movies by him I've seen. Um, but I have friends who think he's just one of the greatest ever. But I think it's good that this movie has gotten its due. Definitely
Yeah,
influential.
yeah, I think more people should see it. Absolutely. And I thank you, Henry, for putting it on my radar. Thank you.
No problem. If you got the money, buy this Criterion edition uh, Blu-ray set. It's worth it. I've put the movie on and like watched it. Sometimes I watch silent movies or black and white movies that are kind of coming out of the silent era, and not just well German and American and Japanese, believe it or not, because they got sound kind of later, like in the mid 30s. But I like to watch those kind of movies, and they're almost like ambient films to me. I mean, it's like I have them on and I don't always follow the plot or all the intertitles, but there's just this vibe to it, especially if they have a cool soundtrack, and
Great energy from the
you
film
kind of
for
get
sure.
involved, enveloped in that world, because it
Hmm.
is a totally different time, different culture, everything. It's like
Hmm.
time travel. It's incredible.
Absolutely. That's the magic of cinema, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right, well, we're going to wrap up and want to thank everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe and share it with all your friends and family and strangers, whoever. We're almost at 500 subscribers. By the time you watch this, hopefully we will be, and we're going forward to try to get to 1,000. Um, so thanks a lot, everyone, and have a good night. We'll be back soon with more exciting episodes.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.